Good morning and welcome to Citizen Extra. I am Ann Kiguta. We're keeping you abreast of all political issues and other news that's taking place across the country. We're going to be live in Webuye this morning, where our reporter Stephen Leto is standing by. He, of course, is following preparations for nominations that kick off tomorrow. And in Busia Town, our Sam Ogena is also standing by. And here in studio, we have analysts and MPs who are going to be giving us analysis on all the breaking political stories this morning. I'm joined by Kiharo MP, Irungu Hangata, Lugari MP, Ayub Savula, a political analyst, Dr. Sam Kamau, and Eunice Lumales, who's a governance expert. And I'll be speaking to all of them this morning. But first, let's give you the day's diary. In the news today, IEBC is expected to gazette all names of the aspirants seeking nomination in the various political parties. We'll be letting you know this as it unfolds. Also in the news, Kenya continues with its charm offensive with the Middle East as President Uhuru Kenyatta hosts a delegation from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. That's only a day after the Emir of Qatar left Nairobi. And in politics, the storm in the opposition continues as ODM and ANC take a dig at each other over the search for a flag bearer for the NASA coalition. We're keeping an eye on the sibling rivalry that is threatening the National Super Alliance. And across the counties, the Council of Governors will be addressing a news conference and, among other issues, the upcoming elections and county expenditure. And finally, the World Bank is releasing an economic update on Kenya at this hour, and we're on location to break down the numbers for you as they are released. So that and much more lined up for you as we watch news as it happens. But we want to begin this hour with a conversation on IEBC. As we mentioned earlier, we're expecting the release of those aspirant names. The much-awaited publication of that list, of course, will really herald the beginning, if you like, of campaigns and the electoral process in earnest. Let me begin with you, Savula. What are you expecting once these names are in the public domain?
Thank you, Ann Kiguta. Once the names are in the public domain, the aspirants now, it's just a mere list of aspirants. The aspirants now will prepare for nomination. After the nomination exercise is when now the political parties, various political parties, will give nomination certificates to the winners. But in areas where there will be dispute, there's a political party tribunal where the complainants will report the matter so that the political parties have time now to resolve the dispute before the fair winner is given the nomination certificate. Do you expect that IEBC will actually, not release names of aspirants who have been embroiled in some form of controversy, be it electoral related violence or have questionable certificates? I'm sure this time around, leaders who have questionable certificate, the Commission on University Education will have to provide a report to the IEBC. On the basis of that report, IEBC will now screen the candidate and ensure that those ones who don't meet the criteria will not get the clearance. But as of today, are you expecting any such surprise that some big names may be missing from the IEBC list? Of course, the process is going on. There's a process of scrutinizing. They are going through list by list before they submit for gazettement. And in that process, they will eliminate those ones who don't meet the criteria for a fair and free election in this country. Irungu, what do you think?
Well, I think we do have a watertight law. I think this is a progress compared to 2013 and 2007 elections, where we have names being published prior to the nominations. And by that one, candidates have the chance to either rectify their names or even lodge any complaints if at all their names are missing. And therefore, me, I think this is a progress. All right, so you also don't seem to sound as if you're expecting any surprises. What about you, Dr. Kamau? Is this the time for IEBC to really vindicate itself once we see this list, that it will sort of display a kind of zero tolerance policy when it comes to anybody with either questionable integrity as per Chapter 6 and is deemed to be unfit to hold public office, or not presenting the right credentials?
Well, definitely you expect that the vetting of candidates will continue even after the list is publicized or gazetted. Definitely you expect some noise because there will be some names, perhaps mistakes or omissions or something like that. But the vetting of candidates, I think, is an ongoing process, and there are issues that will still continue coming up, especially once the names are made public. you expect some complaints or issues that will arise as a result of certain questions revolving around integrity, maybe current disciplinary or pending court cases, or even issues that have to do with academic qualifications. So we expect some questions will definitely come up even after that list is made public.
Eunice, what do you think about the vetting so far that we are hoping to see, some evidence of once this aspirants lists are revealed? There's been concern that it's been a witch hunt, perhaps, when some aspirants are concerned.
In terms of the party primaries, I think there should be no big surprises that we should expect today. Because any issues with respect to vetting or disciplinary issues should have been undertaken before today. And therefore the names, because this is basically an internal political party affairs, so the names forwarded to IBC as of today, I do not expect there to be any big surprises, because political parties should have undertaken their own internal vetting of their candidates before today. What we expect to see perhaps would have been errors. I know one or two probably names because of disciplinary issues may have been removed as of today, but I do not expect there should be any big surprises at this point. Later, after the primaries, that's when we expect a thorough vetting by IBC.
Almost sounds like up until this stage it's purely conveyor belt.
Not entirely, but almost, because it's it's political parties and their candidates or aspirants, as some would wish to call it, and up to this place, it is internal vetting as per political party rules. So I do not think there should be any big surprises up to now.
Dr. Kamau, once these names are in the public domain, obviously, we'll be looking out for the big names to see if they're actually on the list and any interesting surprises in terms of who will be running. But really, what should the public be keeping an eye on once these names are released?
Well, definitely, of course, this marks, we would almost say, the official start of the party primaries or the nominations, which we expect from tomorrow. And so definitely, for the people who are politically conscious or interested in the process, of course, they are keen to know whether their candidates are there, because, of course, there are issues where we are not sure, or rather some questions have been raised around certain, we would say, prominent candidates, and therefore people are keen to know whether these people will actually be in the list, and of course they participate in the process of nominations, which we expect will start tomorrow. But like I said, because of some of the questions hanging around certain aspirants, or even in the different places, I know everybody is anxious, but once this list is made public, I guess then it means people are ready for the nomination process, and the issues that arise will definitely be held or rather addressed immediately after that.
Eunice, just as Dr. Kamau has said, there is the well, I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but you can expect that the candidates who are already active in politics will have some sort of advantage because their names are out there in the public domain, etc. But we are expecting a lot of new names as well to be on this list. A lot of independent candidates, people who are not, are not on the traditional political parties lineup. How would you advise the public to view these names that may not be familiar, people who do not necessarily have a track record, that one can peg them against, in as far as, really starting to critically think about the kind of leaders they want to elect?
What I can say is that now is when we are seeing IBC coming out strongly seizing itself of the new roles that the statutes have conferred upon it because of the new amendments. And I think this is a first in terms of gazetting names of candidates or aspirants for the party primaries. What is going to happen is now we are seeing a lot more interest in the county positions, a lot more competitions, even in terms of special interest groups, and therefore it's a very vibrant field out there. In terms of independent candidates as well, it's a new because of the new constitution. So in terms of what the public needs to look out for is to, I think, have an open mind in terms of viewing the candidates that we have out there. I think you'll still expect us to see parties where where they are more popular to have people going for parties rather than candidates. as is expected. But I think independent candidates, there's been a lot more independent candidates coming up because of the fact that party hopping may be something that has been that may be blocked.
Well, will it be blocked really now that, you know, the courts suspended that provision? Are we not still expecting that, you know, nothing really bars people who will feel disgruntled from the primaries, you know, to cross over? Where do we stand in law in as far as that is concerned?
You remember that the suspension was actually lifted by the court. I think sometime in March, maybe 29th of March, the suspension was lifted. So the suspension is actually not existent as it is. So the Section 28, I believe, of the Elections Act can now be implemented.
Savula, is that your own interpretation as, you know, one of the many hopefuls in this round of elections, that there will be no party hopping?
I think there's one party that appealed against that court ruling. But the court had ruled that you can party hop 45 days to the election, but there's a party, an independent party, that appealed to that. So I think the IBC will stick with the timelines. That now they have submitted their names for gazettement. After the gazettement, if you participate in this nomination exercise, the only option you have is to run as an independent, because an independent you have time up to the tail end of the election. But crossing over to another political party, it will be difficult, it will be complicated because of the court matters.
Let's switch gears now to the party primaries, which are expected to begin tomorrow, and very shortly we'll be taking you to Webuye and Busia, where our reporters are standing by and keeping us appraised of party preparations there. But Irungu, let me come to you. Do you believe political parties now are ready for these primaries, especially after IBC gave this almost 10-week quote-unquote extension, because they said these names have to be gazetted first? Should parties be ready to run credible and smooth primaries?
Yes, of course. Of course, every party ought to be ready in terms of resources, in terms of personnel, in terms of publicity on the part of the aspirants. But I can only speak on behalf of Jubilee because I'm an aspirant in that party. For CORD, I can only speak based on what I see in the newspapers. And based on the information that I get, it appears CORD is not prepared. You can see quite a high level of violence amongst CORD supporters. We saw violence in Migori. We saw violence in Busia. My friend,
we saw the same with Jubilee Party?
Well, I don't know. I'm not aware of any place where Jubilee
You're not?
people have
How about
fought.
starting with Nairobi?
Well, yes, I saw that one, but...
that one. Only that one. But well, okay, great.
Well, strictly speaking, the time we saw violence in Dagoretti between supporters of PK and supporters of Sonko, there were not aspirants per se. They were still joking. They were still not yet bona fide aspirants for the Jubilee Party.
They were still joking.
No,
that is a line I have never heard.
They were not cleared by the party as of the time they were fighting in Dagoretti. But going back to your question, I would say for Jubilee Party, I think it's quite a well-organized party. Why do I say so? Number one, we were called to the Jubilee Party to go and verify our names. We were given that opportunity. If you want to change your name, how do you want your name to appear on the ballot? Is your photo okay? We were given about 3 days to go and do that. So that one is quite impressive. Number two, there will be meetings that are set to be held on 18th of April, next week, Tuesday, at various county offices, where we shall go and express our issues and discuss with the board that is going to conduct elections of Jubilee. So based on what is happening in Jubilee, it is quite clear that we are set. And again, you can recall very well the CORD, I think it was ODM, where it was said they had a certain dispute between them and IBC in terms of the date of nomination. They wanted to do nominations prior to that thing. So to me, that attests a party that is not quite organized. But on the part of Jubilee, it appears they are quite organized based on those systematic events.
Parties should be ready is what you're saying. Just hold that thought. I want to bring in our reporters. As I mentioned earlier, we've got Sam Ogina in Busia town and Stephen Leto who'll join us first, reporting from Webuye on preparations ahead of primaries which kick off tomorrow. Stephen.
A very good morning to you, Ann Kiguta, in studio. Indeed, we are coming to you live from Webuye East constituency in Bungoma County, where preparations for the Orange Democratic Movement nomination exercise is at top gear. Remember, it's D-Day for political parties as the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission publishes the names of all their aspirants. And so there has been a lot of issues that are on ground. This particular from last week, after the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission said that no political party will be allowed to conduct the party primaries before the electoral agency file.
All right, we apologize. We're going to try and catch up with Stephen a little later. A bit of a problem with that link, but we will return to Webuye shortly and later to Busia as we follow up preparations on party primaries. But let me come to you, Dr. Kamau. What is at stake at this point in the race?
Well, I think Mweshimiwa here is quite optimistic that the nominations will go on well, or maybe the parties are prepared. But I think we all know, and I don't expect that this will be different. In the past, political party nominations have been characterized by chaos and confusion, and we expect that the same will happen. There are still some questions that still linger, especially in regard to which lists are going, or which registers are going to be used in the nomination process. What I expect is, and what we have seen, this intense competition, because in some places, once somebody is nominated, especially in the strongholds of the political parties, it's almost a guarantee that you'll make it to the whatever position you're going for. So we expect there will be chaos, definitely there will be confusion, but there will be also time to resolve these issues. But my opinion is, I don't think there is any political party that has the right machinery and logistically prepared to conduct free and smooth nominations. We still expect issues will come up. However,
why do you say that? Why do you say you don't believe any of them has the logistical skills?
If IBC requires so much time to prepare for the general elections, and some of the parties we know were formed just recently, some coalitions are coming together at the moment, I think they have not had enough time to adequately prepare. For example, in terms of their party lists, which ones are going to be used? Most likely they may resort to using the IBC register or whatever other register will be used. I do not think that logistically they have prepared. Of course, they are telling us that the ballot papers are being printed outside the country, that they have prepared, but you still see some issues. The other thing is, the nominations are happening, for example, on working days. You expect that majority of those who will participate maybe are those who have the time, maybe they are not working or they are not engaged, or those that the aspirants managed to organize. But for the majority of people, I think they will just be watching news and see the results streaming in, and that of course gives room to questions about the real democratic nature of the nomination process. My opinion is, these political party nominations is basically, it will be a sham for most of the parties, but somehow will still give us the candidates or the aspirants that will eventually end up in the main election.
Let's cross over to Sam Ogina, who's standing by for us. He is in Busia and joins us now with an update on preparations there for nomination. Sam.
Right, the hour is nigh here in Busia County for the 124 aspirants who will be seeking the ODM party ticket. Of course, this coming against the backdrop of IEBC publishing names of all aspirants, essentially paving way for party primaries slated for tomorrow here in Busia County, Bungoma and Machakos for ODM. Of course, the ODM Busia County Elections Board Secretary Innocent Oluku saying what they're waiting for is just the arrival of polling materials that include the party register and also ballot boxes and ballot papers from party headquarters in Nairobi. This time round saying by midday polling materials should be here in Busia County at the ATC, which will be ODM's tallying center. And now how the procedure has been arranged is that for MCAs, vote counting and vote tallying will be done in their respective wards. and that's where the winner of the MCA ticket will be announced in the ward level, and then coming to the constituency level, ODM is going to announce who will be the MP candidate, now graduating from an aspirant to candidate at the constituency level. And of course, the tallying center, the main tallying center here in Busia town, will only be announcing the senator, the women's rep, and the governor. Of course, the governor ticket here in Busia County eliciting a lot of excitement, eliciting a lot of interest, especially from two bigwigs here in Busia County, the incumbent, that is Sospita Ojamong, and Funyula MP Paul Otoma. Of course, the two coming against the backdrop of the two being summoned to appear before ODM's disciplinary committee for what transpired here last week. Of course, we saw tension, we saw chaos and violence rocking both campaigns of Otoma and Sospita Ojamong, the two politicians engaging each other in a war of words, saying, blaming each other for the violence that occurred, the violence that rocked their campaigns. Of course, the verdict of what the ODM disciplinary committee will come up with, just trying to make sure that these party primaries tomorrow, violence does not reoccur. Of course, we understand that none of them is going to be disqualified, as much as probably they are going to get a penalty, but none of the two candidates are going to be disqualified from the race, just trying to keep the situation in Busia actually to restore calm here in Busia County by not disqualifying any of the members, saying that despite the violence that occurred last week, the level of the chaos does not warrant a disqualification of any of the candidates. So here in Busia County, candidates using the eve of the nominations just to comb the grounds that they had not combed through during the period that there was. And so using today just to make sure that they get to the extreme end or the extreme ends of Busia County and make sure that they have an edge over each other. And of course, something else is the County Elections Board says that they've employed at least 600 polling officers, and those polling officers will include security officers, but the county commander saying in case they are overwhelmed by security arrangements here in Busia County, then what they are going to do is they are going to seek redeployment from neighboring counties, that is Kakamega County and Vihiga County. And while we're standing here just waiting to go live, we saw a vehicle from Vihiga County full of security personnel just driving through, just signaling that everything is in place, security arrangements being made to sure that everything does not boil over, and just make sure that everything goes according to plan, and after the nominations that Busia County can still carry on and people go on with their businesses here in Busia County. But we'll be speaking to the County Elections Board Secretary. He's called Mr. Innocent Oluku, just to give us a brief on how or when they're going to deploy polling officers to the polling stations, and also just when they're going to release the polling materials to various polling stations, 105 polling stations as it were. So that is how it is here in Busia County, just awaiting for the exercise to kick off. It kicks off tomorrow at 6 in the morning and closes at 5 p.m. And from there, vote counting carries on, or rather, we start vote counting at 5, and maybe 2 or 3 hours after that, we expect to see who will be the flag bearer or who will be the candidate for ODM here in Busia County. Back to you, Ann Kiguta, the Communications Center.
Thanks very much. We continue our conversation, of course, on those nominations as we keep an eye on it. Eunice, you've heard our reporter there talking about, that unfortunate phrase really that is characterizing this particular electoral stage, which is the zero-sum game. Is there any way to bring down the, very high-stakes kind of nomination process that we're going to witness?
I think, Anne, it's a concern, the issue of violence in elections, and I think we must ensure in the strongest way possible that we are able to deal with violence. The Electoral Code of Conduct is very clear about what parties ought to do with their own candidates who are implicated in violence. Now, the issue about candidates in the list or participating candidates is that it's not enough to accuse someone of violence. Every political party must have an internal disciplinary mechanism. So if you've gone through that mechanism, I think parties must now be bold enough, if they have fairly independent disciplinary teams internally, to be able to disqualify someone, for example. Nonetheless, even if your name has been forwarded to compete in the primaries, and let us expect a lot of fierce competition where parties are very strong, you know, in the so-called strongholds. Let's expect a lot of fierce competition between competitors in those particular areas. But this time, I think we need to be very alive and very alert, particularly individuals implicated in violence. Because in terms of vulnerable people, women, and we need to bring more of this into the political life, if for nothing else, to save the taxpayers money due to you know, topping up numbers, but also vulnerable persons with disabilities and etc., who get intimidated with this violence. So because of that, I think we need to take action. Right. If someone is implicated, even after the primary or during the primaries, IBC should come in as well. To deal with that, the violence.
Hold that thought, Eunice, and a little later we're going to be, of course, keeping an eye on ODM, which is expected to be telling us, its disciplinary committee at least should be telling us the action they'll be taking against those 16 legislators who are implicated in some form of violence in the run-up to these nominations. But Savula, you know, is this just what the political game is like, that it's always going to be high stakes, that there's no way to tone down, to undo the ante, if you like, that it will always be high, it will always be zero-sum? Or do you see that there's a way to change the nature of the game where it isn't winner takes all?
And things have changed. This is a new constitution. I pity my fellow aspirants who are actually involved in cases of violence. Once a political party has summoned you and they have slapped a fine on you, that is already a conviction. That conviction, when after the election, when an opponent prefers to go to court and petitions against your victory, I'm sure the court will use that process because it's part of the law. They will use that process. They may even rubber stamp the conviction or uphold the conviction that was done at the political party's level, and you lose your seat. So I'm warning my fellow aspirants, let's not participate in violence at this moment. Once the party notices that you have participated in violence and slaps fine on you, this is a process that will culminate into you losing that seat after even the general election. And
as you say that, let's switch gears then proper to ODM's disciplinary verdict. As I mentioned, 16 ODMers will know their fate today after, you know, the elections board basically alluded to the fact that they were willing even to bar some of these candidates from taking part in the nominations. And bearing in mind what you have said, Savula, do you believe that unless the disciplinary committee takes some serious action, including, you know, the penalty that you're talking about, a fine of some sort, that ODM's image will be irreparable?
That is true. The image of a political party will be irreparable, because once a party has confirmed that the individual candidates or aspirants were involved in violence, in the public image, the party is deemed to have been involved in electoral malpractices. And once a political party slaps a fine on an individual aspirant who was involved in violence, the fine that does not end his fate. His fate might come up after the nomination. IEBC can take up the matter and decide even to bar him because he has confirmed he was involved in electoral malpractices. So what I think is that the political parties' disciplinary committees must be strict on aspirants and bar them at that particular level, instead of just fining them because they'll go back and get involved in such practices. It has happened in Migori, it has happened in Busia. Why not bar the candidate? Why just slap a fine? Because this is a matter of life and death, and we don't want a repeat of the last 2007.
And you know, that's what common sense should dictate, but Dr. Kamau, can parties actually afford to lose some of these very popular candidates at this point in the game, do you think that common sense will be sacrificed at the altar of, you know what, the expediency that we need to win the seats? And these are the people, unfortunately, many of those on the ODM 16 list are some very popular names.
And if you ask me, the disciplinary process is just a PR exercise. There is no way the party favorites on that list, you'd expect them to be barred or disqualified in any way. But I think ODM would be struggling with a bigger issue here, and maybe that is why they decided to initiate the disciplinary proceedings. In the past, we know that the nominations have been characterized again by chaos and violence, and in this particular instance, we have seen people die because of the violent clashes. So maybe they decided to hold these disciplinary process or mechanism as a way of sanitizing the image, but you expect whatever verdict they come up with will just be a slap on the wrist. It will basically not amount to much, because in any case that some of the candidates or some of the people who are under the disciplinary procedure at the moment, their names will definitely be part of the list that will be gazetted today, and there is no way, because there is no time and the nominations are starting tomorrow, for example Busia and the other places, you don't expect that they can disqualify their candidates. But on the other hand, is the penalties cannot be stiff. It will just be a slap on the wrist, like I said, and even the fines, basically, they will just be small fines that the candidates will not feel the pinch. But I think the bigger issue here is, and we know the rules, the regulations are there, the law is there, but I think it's enforcement within the political parties, but also by IEBC. Mheshimiwa Sabula believes that some of the issues happening now could have implications in the future, but apparently it's not a deterrent at the moment, and we still continue to see more violence. I'm still apprehensive, by the way, that between now and the end of the nominations, we'll still see more violence, because that it seems to be the order of the day.
Irungu, is it fair to say, in your opinion, and of course you're not an ODMer, but nonetheless, do you believe that whatever decision will be arrived at by the disciplinary committee, that it will be one that Raila Odinga will have had to sign off on?
Of course, it goes without saying, what ODM is doing is purely a PR exercise. However, I belong to the school of thought that the idea of blocking any political actor from vying should be used in exceptional circumstances. In fact, it should be used sparingly, and for obvious reason, because when you prohibit a political actor from vying from a political party, you're entering into a very dangerous zone. That political actor may as well now do other unorthodox methods of acquiring political power. Let me give you a good example. In the 1980s or thereabout, Moi was controlling the state, and his party KANU was a monolithic political party. So what did they do? They excluded people like Kenneth Matiba. In his mind, Moi thought that is the end of a person like Kenneth Matiba. But what did Kenneth Matiba do? He reinvented himself into a multi-party and by doing that, he caused a revolution.
Have we not seen exceptional circumstances in this race? We've had loss of life.
Well, of course, I agree. For ODM party, in fact, I belong to the school of thought, the entire party most likely can as well be proscribed, because it's quite violent. Or alternatively,
sure, you can't label the whole party, even you, sir.
Well, of course.
Isn't it everywhere where we have seen this violence? Is it not about the candidates and then the response of the party?
Yes, I agree, but most likely the political party registrar needs to take punitive action against the ODM as a party, either in the form of a fine or any other punitive measure, taking into account the chaos that has engulfed that region. However, I would still belong to the school of thought that don't block any political actor probably to express himself politically. Even this idea of clearance, I don't know by which entity, yeah, it is good, but it should be the exception, not the rule. Otherwise, you may have people who are excluded from the political arena, and then they use that energy probably to acquire power through unorthodox means, and therefore you wreck the country in your own, whereas you are probably trying to bring some so-called sanity. I think bottom line, we must always allow the people to decide. In a democracy, the ultimate judge must always be the people.
But there have to be rules for the game. There has to be, and you can't say that the rule should be the exception to the rule. The rule is the rule.
Well, but we are talking about the principle. It is the principle that is then crystallized into a law. So if, for instance, you start saying, I'm going to bar all those people who have had any form of conviction, and by the way, you have to look at the Constitution. Also, what does the Constitution speculate or envisage? Like the Constitution says, you can only block a person based on these clear parameters. So don't expand that list, for instance. But I agree, where we have loss of life, where we have major chaos, that one I agree, that one does fall under the exception rule, and some action needs to be taken.
Sabula, let me return to you. To what extent do you believe that the violence tag that has been on ODM extends to the party leader Raila Odinga and becomes an impediment or a problem for him going into the elections as a likely presidential candidate?
And it weighs heavily on the image of ODM. And the image of ODM is Raila. If a political party, his party is actually embroiled in political violence in every county where the party enjoys the dominant support. It weighs on his image. How do people feel Raila as an individual? Can he be able to control the political temperature of a country if he cannot manage the political temperature within his own party? Just in Nyanza region, Western region, and Coastal region where you've seen violence. You know, Kenyans look at that and weigh the capacity of a leader. If he cannot manage political violence within his own party, how will he manage the security of a country? Those are the things that Kenyans will start analyzing. So it's better he moves in quickly, warn his candidates, or call a meeting and resolve this matter, because it's going to weigh on his image. When he talks about managing national security, how do you manage national security, matters of national security, when you cannot manage matters of national security of your own political party?
Right. Important questions. Let me come to you, Eunice, finally, as we wind up on this topic. You know, eventually then we are expecting, I believe on May 10th, for parties to be basically presenting party lists, you know, who will be on their, you know, running on their ticket come the election. When you look at it broadly, what will party lists tell us about what these political outfits stand for?
Again, much as a people, we are very averse to obedience of the law, and we get shocked in terms of implementation. In terms of party lists, I expect a huge difference now, and I must say that party leaders, because in Kenya we still have a stronghold on party leaders in political parties, but let's expect a big change. Why am I saying this? The new Political Parties Amendment Act, I think it's number 2 of 2016, is very clear on what needs to be in the party list. You must ensure you have special interest groups in party lists. So even as we are going towards the party list, we expect that we'll be thinking not only about I mean, now we have to think broadly. Where are our minorities? You know, minorities, we're talking about the Ilchamus of Kenya, you know, those minority ethnic groups will be. Parties are expected to include those women, persons with disability, and disability in all its shades, not just one form of disability. So we expect parties will have all this at the back of their mind, and also we expect that parties will take advantage of, because I don't expect in the primaries that we'll see a lot of change in terms of women filling up a lot of the spaces. So we expect that a lot of those persons should be included in the party list for this.
Right. And we're going to take us up to the top of the hour right now. Of course, stay with us on Citizen Extra. We're covering news as it happens across the country. We're watching very closely for statements coming out of ODM's disciplinary committee this morning. We also have meetings of aspirants of ODM and Wiper this morning. We'll be listening in to what they have to say, as well as a little later talking about ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi. Has he been betrayed for a second time, or is this a little bit of his own undoing? We're talking after the break. Stay with us on Citizen Extra.